Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and TikTok was caught spying on you. Whoa! I'm not shocked. No one should be. Now, I'm going to rip the band-aid off right here. In the last few days, believe it or not, BuzzFeed decided to bring on an actual investigation. Yes, you might be like, BuzzFeed? Whoa, Muta, it's getting a little sussy-wussy. Well, they actually ended up getting their hands on a bunch of leaked conversations, leaked meetings within TikTok. Yeah, according to BuzzFeed here, everything is seen in China, said one employee in TikTok's Trust and Safety Department during a September 2021 meeting, where they had one director who is from Beijing that was basically known as the master administrator who had access to everything, I assume, on the VM that, TikTok is running on. According to BuzzFeed, 14 statements from 9 different members of TikTok staff in the recording indicated China-based engineers had access to US data between September 2021 and January 2022. Wow, I am so shocked that the service that originally came from the other side of the world might possibly have connections, network-wise, to all parts of their infrastructure all over the world. I'm genuinely shocked right now. Really? Was this really news out there? I don't know. This wasn't really wild and shocking to me. We all kind of expected this to happen anyways. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to understand with the Chinese government, I don't want to just specifically single them out, okay? Don't get me wrong. The Chinese government does a lot of evil stuff on their side of the world too, okay? We can talk about all the camps that they have set up. Not exactly a good time. We can talk about the fact that if you're a tech company in China and you decide to, you pull up your pants and enter the world of high finance internationally, they won't let you. In the last couple of years, the Chinese government has put so many brakes and punishments on some of the largest companies in the world from China just because they got a little too big for their britches. For instance, Jack Ma's company, Ant Group, basically tried to get itself public in an IPO, and it was somewhere to the tune of $34 billion. And in the last few days, the Chinese government jumped in and basically prevented that entire, IPO from happening, to the point where so many slaps on the wrist were given and basically prevented the company from actually going way beyond the scope of control that the Chinese government has. Even companies like Tencent, which definitely are Chinese affiliated, every company in China typically has to answer to the government in a very, very insane capacity, they actually ended up getting a penalty of 10 billion yuan, which is like 1.5 billion here. Enough for their state administration to give them enough of a punishment to remind them that they shouldn't go beyond it. This was actually given to them because, and laugh at this all you want, antitrust regulation. Yes, apparently they were just getting so many acquisitions and investments, and I guess at some capacity they were not really reporting it to the government. And then, of course, let's not forget when Tencent actually ended up getting a bit of a slap in the wrist, too, regarding the video gaming division. So the Chinese government actually put a halt on, how many games that they could actually update or launch in China. So they actually put a stop on their entire business. They kind of put it at at a standstill. And again, a lot of these punishments are given so that the Chinese government will always remain in control, especially when it comes to some of these largest companies. It's a very, very fine game of allowing these companies to be very, very successful multinational organizations, while at the same time curtailing their growth so hard that they will still always answer to the CCP in every capacity. If you don't play under the thumb of the CCP, you're not winning. But again, I don't want to just single out China, okay? I believe every big government is scary when it comes to this. One of the videos that I'm working on when I come back from Los Angeles, it actually ties into the Metal Gear Solid 2 video, is the concept of US data surveillance. Because yes, every country is complicit into it. If you think the United States gets pissed about user data from the United States going into other countries, it's not that they're not spying on you. Oh, trust me, the NSA, all these organizations, they're spying on you. Literally all 13 or 14 of the US intelligence services are all spying on their citizens. No questions about it. The only time it ever gets annoying is when somebody else from the other part of the world is spying on the citizens. Only spying on Americans should be done by Americans, according to the US government. And again, that same sentiment floats around on the entire side of the world. Russia likes to spy on its own citizens, does not like it when other powers try to do the same. Same for Canada, same for Japan, same for any real country out there. Also, you have to understand it's not the spying that a lot of these governments are worried about. It's the fact that when you have social media services that can directly influence the cultural impact of a group of people, the politics. Now, of course, even in the US, right, Prism I could mention a million times, but you also had projects like Project Shamrock and Minaret. Minaret, which was literally an exercise created back in 1945 that basically got the United States to gather all the telegraphic data, all the telegraphs that entered or exited the United States. Back in the day, AFSA, which is known as the Armed Forces Security Agency, would literally sit down there, get daily microfilm copies of literally everything incoming and outgoing in the world of telegrams back in the day of the United States, and they would just basically scan through, at times, 100 to 150,000 messages every single month. In fact, one of the things that got exposed literally from the NSA was big data analysis. This is something known as boundless informant. This is actually something that belonged to the the US's National Security Agency, okay, the big boy hacker group of the US. Now, when you look at just this alone, you can actually see that what they're trying to track is all of the actual the internet data records and the telephony data records right here. So you can actually see that they've tracked 97 billion internet data records and about 124 billion telephony data records in this situation. And of course, they're doing it from various countries. Countries such as Jamaica, Pakistan, all over the world. The US is not only spying on its own, but everywhere around it. But I think we're going to go back. We're kind of deviating from the point at home. The point being is that a lot of the spying exists all around the world too. And there are various methods to spy on us. So when I hear that TikTok, all the way coming from ByteDance in China, is spying on US citizens, it does not shock me whatsoever. Every country tries to do this to everybody else, okay? It's simply a fact of life. There is a digital war going all around us every single day. It's kind of like oxygen, okay? We know it exists, it's all around us, we just can't physically see it. Same thing goes for cyber warfare. Every day, tons of data is transferred every day across the internet sea cables, all the time between various countries. And there is a war going on us all the time to capture each other's user data all the time. And all of us are captured in the middle of the cyber war. Now, a few days ago, even the United States division of TikTok had to re-clarify, not because of this, that their user data was staying in the United States for US users. Now, if you don't know, in the last couple of years, because of the massive pressure put onto TikTok by the politicians in the United States, literally about the idea of US user data leaving the country, they had to commit really hard in order to partner with US tech companies. Specifically in this case, working with Oracle to keep your user data flow within the United States. Now, of course, that's just Oracle hosting those metal servers, those bare metal servers in the US. Of course, nowhere in this explanation do I believe the actual concept of software is even mentioned, which let's get to. 14 of the leaked recordings include conversations with or about a team of consultants from Booz Allen and Hamilton. One of the consultants told TikTok employees that they were brought on February 2021 to help manage the Project Texas data migration. And a TikTok director told other TikTok employees that the consultants reported to TikTok's chief of US data defense. The recordings, the consultants investigate how data flows through TikTok and ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok located in Beijing, internal tools, including those used for data visualization, content moderation, and monetization. So again, every single one of these companies has their own set of software to better, modify their tools, right? Like everyone has their own proprietary software. In September 2021, one consultant said to the colleagues, "I feel like with these tools, there's some backdoor to access user data in almost all of them," which is exhausting. Now, to go back to the old Oracle thing, Oracle is basically giving TikTok a large amount of flexibility, allegedly, in how they can handle their new data center in Texas. Effectively, in a recorded conversation in late July, TikTok's head of global cyber and data defense made clear that while Oracle would be providing the physical data storage space for Project Texas, TikTok would control the software layer. It's almost incorrect to call it Oracle Cloud because they're just giving us bare metal. And then we're building our VMs, virtual machines, on top of it. What's kind of being mentioned here is while Oracle literally gave them the, physical bare metal space to host their server, they still operate their own virtual machines. If you don't understand, a lot of our server stuff is done as containers or virtual machines. So these people provision their own software, and then as you can imagine, they can then connect to their own, virtual machines through any part of the world, still China. So even if you're hosting this in Texas, right, and you think all the user data is going to Texas, it takes one simple connection from China all the way to the US for them to siphon data back and forth. Now, of course, I'm sure Oracle has a plan for this. I'm sure because these are just virtual machines and Oracle has full, complete access to the bare metal hypervisor, they can absolutely see what network traffic is going on between virtual machines to other parts of the world. And I'm sure Oracle can track this on their end just as well to hold up their end of the bargain with the US government. And there's nothing stopping a foreign national from China to come over and log in within the United States to assess that data on the terms here. So the data never really even has to leave the United States. It can just be assessed on the local shore right here by somebody in the other side of the world. Again, you really have to trust TikTok, and when they say they're working with US agents and they're working with US-based security companies, that they're not actually going to do this. But when it comes to the world of billion-dollar data brokerage like this, multi-billion-dollar data brokerages, I don't have trust for anybody, regardless of what company they're in, okay? Because it is what it is. So again, I know it's a little bit dry in these streets, but I wanted to really talk about the situation because none of this surprises me. I don't understand why anybody's sitting over there going surprised that TikTok would probably end up spying on citizens from all over the world, not just the United States. Let's not pretend. Now, if anybody's wondering that, hey, maybe we should delete TikTok? Well, deleting TikTok isn't even the answer. The kind of data that China or whatever could gather on the United States could easily be bought from a data broker. If you think TikTok is the one mobile app you should be freaked out over, you should be freaked out over any mobile app. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever mobile service you use, whatever social media service you use, Twitter, for instance, all of these applications have the same level of access, if not more or less slightly, depending on what permissions you provide them, to have the same level of access on your smartphone devices and what you do. If you think what TikTok is doing is unique in data collection, you'd be just as surprised as what Facebook is doing. Facebook is probably worse than TikTok when it comes to this kind of stuff. But TikTok is the only one brought into it because they're the ones that ultimately answer to the Chinese government. And this cross, data transfer between two countries is the real meat and potatoes of the argument. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the same kind of stuff that the US and the European Union have to discuss when data from those citizens are transferred to, data centers in the other side of the world. Every country is paranoid of the other country when it comes to their user data suddenly showing up in another country. And again, to reiterate back to the point I said earlier of these platforms and their relevance amongst the international community, right? Like, for instance, TikTok is so massive that there's no doubt in my mind or anybody's mind that it could directly influence the political spectrum of the United States, the emotional spectrum of their people, and downright what kind of content that they're getting pushed into via the algorithm. See, if people are spending hours of their day on YouTube or TikTok, mostly TikTok sometimes, then it's really TikTok's game as to what they want to feed you, what narratives they want to provide you through their own algorithms, right? At the end of the day, the algorithm is all completely controlled by those in the back end. And of course, as we all know, TikTok is basically backdoored by the Chinese anyways. Now again, to reiterate, every social media platform is pretty much backdoored too. If you think Facebook isn't backdoored by the NSA, you'd be absolutely surprised. For the amount of shit that Apple talks about with privacy, I'm almost certain, just on a hunch, that they're probably backdoored and they don't even realize it. That's how scary some of these international, organizations can be. These nation state level, fucking cybersecurity teams that basically have complete ultimate access onto our backdoor daily lives. Now, what can you do about this situation, right? Like, a lot of people out there are probably going to say, and I completely agree to it to an extent, where you might be like, I don't care what government's watching me, Muda. I don't care. I just like going on TikTok and watching the funny videos. And to that extent, I pretty much do agree, all right? Like, at the end of the day, I'm not important enough at all in any capacity. So if the Chinese government wants to know what I jack off to or what I Google every once in a while, I don't necessarily care. What I do care about is what happens if that data actually does end up getting compromised. If that data is compromised by any third party, it's really the people that actually don't like me would try to look for that data and see what they can do against me in that scenario. John Oliver made a pretty good video where he talked about the idea of like data brokerages and actually purchasing data brokerage data to actually, get information on other individuals that probably wouldn't want that data out there, okay? Even if you're not worried about the company or anything of that nature, if this data ends up in the hands of brokers, which are buying and selling every day, anybody could buy your user data. They could buy your browsing history. They could buy anything that you could imagine on you and just basically use it against you or use it to expose individuals out there. Even if you don't actually think about it, in terms of the government spying on you, the amount of data that's still flowing in the private sector about you is something to be a little concerned about. Now, to end the video off, ladies and gentlemen, if any of this shocks you, it frankly shouldn't. Did I think TikTok was spying on us? Absolutely. But one thing that always freaks me out too in this situation is the actual, compliance that they're showing when they're working with US data centers, whether it be Project Texas, Oracle, or whatnot, actually doesn't really answer all of the fears that I would have. As long as TikTok exists and is owned by the CCP, your data will always be accessed by the Chinese government. As long as they have the ability to create a backdoor, as long as they have the ability to create a network tunnel between Chinese space and their US data centers, you're always going to be, spied on, all right? What has been basically exposed here is something that's been going on since the dawn of the internet, if you will, by various countries and various companies out there. All we can really do if we want to protect ourselves against any form of spying by a government we don't trust, by a corporation we don't trust, is to learn how to self-privatize our own data and to start giving up less of our data, or probably get rid of some of these services if you truly feel creeped out. Look, I use Google a lot. Their services help me in my business all the time. And you know what? If I have to give up some of my data to Google, I consider that a transaction, right? I get a good service. They get my user data for advertising purposes. I don't like Facebook. I don't get any benefit out of Facebook. Therefore, I don't use Facebook. Therefore, Facebook doesn't get my data. I privatize what I do on the internet anyways. So even if Facebook has a tracker sitting out on some garbage website, they still won't be able to look up anything on my system. Again, I try to play these things very carefully, and that's pretty much the life I live, okay? TikTok spying on people was not a shocking thing in my book. If anything, this video basically exists as a way to really tell you not to be surprised and really open your eyes to the world of mass global surveillance systems that exist all around us. If you're scared of the Chinese spying on you, well, it's not just them you have to be worried about. It's your own country, your own government, and the government of every massive country out there that has an active mass surveillance program. Because they're not just spying on their own citizens, they're spying on every citizen of every part of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.